Hey folks, welcome to the Generational Gap. I am Robert, your resident Gen Xer, and right over there is John, our resident millennial. Welcome to the show, John. How are you tonight?
Feel very welcome. In fact,
Do you?
probably the most welcome I've ever felt before.
Wow, John, that's a lot of welcome.
Yes.
How are you feeling tonight, John? You had a good week so far? You primed? You excited?
Yeah. Pretty awesome. Can't wait. It's gonna be a good
Wow,
time.
wow.
Yeah.
You're killing me with your
Canned
enthusiasm.
canned responses. Yes.
I love canned responses. If only they were done in a slightly more robotic voice. You're close, but a
Yeah.
little
I'm,
more.
I'm working on it. You know.
That's important.
Yes. I am excited, like a normal human.
John, it's been a weird week going
It
on this
has
week. There have been all sorts of
quite.
things going on, and it's I don't know. I don't know which way to look right now. I keep looking one
Mm.
way and look another, and it's like every time I turn my head to distance myself from something for a moment, there's something else that pops up in front of me, and I'm just like, what the hell is going on here? Um, every time I damn turn on the news or look at my news feed, anything like that. Um,
Mm.
I'm assuming yours is the same way. You're,
In a way, yeah. I mean, it's not always easy to kind of determine what's really going on. It's not always easy to kind of decide whether or not something is
real
whether or not, well, it's not that it's not real, but how much of it is being
is
told.
is
You know?
gained. How much of it is being
Yeah,
gained, right?
yeah,
I,
exactly.
I, I hope you're talking about Iran because this is this one is
I'm talking about a number of things, but yes, Iran
right.
especially.
Iran, is this not one that is really seeming like they're
It really just
okay?
seems like, yeah, it really seems like it's just kind of like it's almost like the last two wars, especially with the war with Iraq. Because I mean, Afghanistan, there was a whole 9/11 thing, and some people did some things there, and we went into Afghanistan where we thought Bin Laden was. That was much more believable than Iraq, and I think that Iran is even less believable than Iraq. And so this is, yeah, it's gonna be
Okay,
ridiculous. I don't think I've seen anyone who is in favor of Iran, of invading Iran or destroying them or whatever we
right.
plan to do.
Well, here's the thing, though. I'm left wondering who is trying to instigate the situation. Like, who's. I really feel like there's a lot of strings being pulled here,
Yeah.
and not sure who's doing it and to what end. I mean, when it's all said and done, um, I mean, just by way of recap, we've had Iran is supposedly responsible for two Chinese tankers being hit. Shot down one of our drones, supposedly over their border or their waters as opposed to international waters.
Mm.
One of their tankers allegedly headed to Syria, or one of their freight ships, oil, whatever it was. One of their ships allegedly heading to Syria, breaking sanctions. The UK
Mm.
told them that if they would show guarantee it's not going to Syria, and we'll let it go. It won't wind up in Syria. Well, so now this week, right? So we've had we supposedly shot down one of their drones,
Hmm.
but the Iran's deputy foreign minister says we haven't lost any drones. So they're trying to figure out who brought
Well, they
down,
would say that, wouldn't they? I mean,
right? Well, we haven't lost any,
so
but so they're trying to figure out, okay, so I don't understand that a little bit, right? I mean, did we shoot down one of their drones?
did we hack one of their drones? Was the other explanation of what happened?
Yeah, supposedly it flew close to within 1,000 meters of one of the USS Boxer and didn't stand down, so they blew it away. Um,
Ooh.
Uh,
Apparently, Midget Bees shared the link around. Oh, our show is now a little whore, just being passed around
oh, I
from
love
one
it when he
person to
does that.
another.
I love it when he
Oh
does that.
yes.
So
But
then,
to be fair though, with Iran, I mean, it is mostly their fault because they did build their country right next to our aircraft carrier. I mean, it's kind of. I mean, come on.
okay,
Why would you
so
just do that if you didn't want to be invaded?
a lot of
I
information
mean,
has, the information is still forthcoming on this because this is, let's call it, more or less breaking news as of this afternoon. Um, Apparently, Iran has taken a UK tanker, has seized a UK tanker. All right, so now because they promised they were going to play tit for tat on that. Well, apparently they've done this, right? So this is new. And they did this in the Hormuz Strait, or Strait of Hormuz. They seized, what was it? The Mediterranean class base operating on bulk shipping. You say a second British-owned Liberian flag tanker. So it was British-owned, headed to or out of
Liberia.
Liberia. But boarded by armed guards, but is now free to continue its journey. So they stopped it. I guess they didn't full on seize it. I guess they're just showing we can. Okay, so then now another one at an Iranian uh, militia camp, an Iran-backed militia camp in Iraq, because Iraq is allies with both the U.S. now and Iran. They're kind of caught in the middle
Naturally.
here, right?
Yeah.
So a drone dropped grenades on this militia camp.
It's kind of grenades, like actual like
Yeah,
fragmentation grenades.
apparently it flew, and that's what this report, the
That
initial
just
report
doesn't make any
said.
sense, but okay, yeah, whatever. I
Right.
mean,
So, well, I mean, see,
that seems a little jury rigged, right? I
right.
mean,
So there's something to consider. Who does that, right? Who runs
well, I mean,
drones dropping grenades? But I mean,
I
it
guess if
does.
you have a drone, if you have a drone, but you don't have like compatible missiles and things to put on it, you make do with what you have. And
Well,
fragmentation grenades are a dime a dozen. So
Let's think about this from the standpoint of think about the drones that we're thinking of here, right? I would not be surprised that we have all sorts of drones being used, and some smaller ones. I mean, on a typical battlefield, if you flew out 50 drones that had a couple of grenades each on them, you know. I mean, how many of those are going to get over to the enemy's line and be able to drop grenades and soften that target?
mm,
I mean, that's a simple little thing, just a couple of grenades and just release the pin. Boom, boom, boom,
yeah.
boom, 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 boom. So, but apparently, nobody, uh, Iraq is saying that it was probably IS militants behind the attack and
Mm,
ruling out America because, of course, Iran is going to think that it's America,
hmm
apparently, and Iraq doesn't want to be caught in the middle of it. But, you know, so, but there's been moments throughout this where America has been, questioned. Okay, the Chinese tankers, was questioned whether or not it was actually Iranian mines that did that, or if the tankers were shot. Conflicting reports, So, who's playing the game here, and what are they trying to accomplish? Is this Iran making weird moves, doing
yeah.
things to try and prompt someone to strike first or start some shit? I don't
It
understand.
really doesn't make any sense because Iran has nothing to gain from attacking or posturing or anything like that. They have nothing to gain.
Um, you
I
know,
mean, are they even? They're not even the superpower of the Middle East. And I
no.
don't mean superpower as in like the ability to fire nukes. I just mean superpower as in like a large military, a commanding presence. They don't have any of that, as far as
Right.
I know. Maybe I'm stupid, and that's probably most likely.
Well,
But it just doesn't seem to me like they have anything to gain
well,
from doing this.
what it ultimately bothers me the most about this, and understand this is me taking from what I've read, and I don't want any of it to be assumption or mislaid fact, but this all hinges on nuclear development, which
Hmm
Iran has said repeatedly, we are not implementing you know, nuclear weapons. That's not what our goal is. Our goal is nuclear power. That's what they keep saying they're focused on. And nothing has been proven to the contrary through anything that's been seen there or anything. And they were fine with the cap on you, how much you enrich, how high they enrich their uranium, how much of it that they have. They were good with that. They've said that they were fine with that, and only because the sanctions were pulled, or the sanctions were put in place because we pulled out of the Iran deal, did they decide, okay, well, we will go ahead and do what we want to do and enrich as much as we want. But they, it's this idea that we're assuming they're working towards nuclear weapons, which we can assume that, much like any other country out there might be. But I need proof before we sit and bust their balls so hard, putting sanctions on them to get what we wanted them to accomplish from the deal. But you didn't like the deal, so you walk away from that and just impose sanctions. And they're asking for the sanctions to be removed. They're none of the other countries are wanting to bust up the Iran deal, and Iran's not. I don't know. I don't like the way this is being done.
Yeah.
If they are doing something, show me.
Right. It's really, really strange. It's a lot of it's just a strange series of events. I mean, like I said, it just makes no sense that Iran would be posturing like this, that they would be,
Well, the
hitting
Jewish
back when
Midget says he read a Jewish newspaper op-ed, which is thoroughly understandable. I mean, we're talking about Israel and everything over there, so that opined Iran was trying to go to West, and see there.
I mean, yeah, but again, why? What do they have to gain from that?
Or are we? Is it possible we're trying to goad them into goading us?
See, that's what I think is more likely. I think that's really what it was. We came over there and we're like, hey, fuck you. And they're like, well, no, fuck you. And they're like, oh, they're attacking us now because they said fuck you.
Right.
Obviously not in the same way, but right.
Exactly.
That's pretty much what's going on. We're bullying them and they push back and we're like, oh, we're being attacked. You know what I mean? It just smells really fishy.
Well,
like it.
I to me, a country that wants to have nuclear weapons, they're gonna follow more of a track like Kim Jong-un, as opposed to making a deal with multiple powerful world entities and say, no, here's the limits we'll reach, this is the boundaries we'll set. They did that. That doesn't sound like somebody who's wanting to put together nuclear weapons, whose goal is it has that's their end goal. I don't get it. Why are we so worried about them? Are they lying to us when they say this is about they want nuclear for power? This is about stronger, cleaner, more efficient power. This is all we're working towards. We're using this for the people. We're not trying to make weapons. When do we stop and listen?
I don't know. But I don't think that we need to be the ones who are leading any kind of effort to denuclearize countries. I mean, I think we need to let the UN do that, which I understand that we are the head of the UN, but do we need to be?
Well,
do we need to decentralize the UN?
Right. Well, these sanctions, and this is the thing. It's like, you cripple them by cutting off money. Okay, I get it, but again, this makes the people suffer. And you need to have a goddamn good reason to do that. Not just because you want to pull out of a deal and impose sanctions, when the deal's goal was to get you where the sanctions are trying to get you as well. I don't. It makes no sense.
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, if the deal isn't reaching that goal, then I understand pulling out of it. But I also don't think that. I don't know. I don't think that parking an aircraft carrier and a aircraft carrier battle group or whatever they call it. It's not a fleet, but it's like smaller than that. parking that outside their country and having these little skirmishes between drones is really gonna help. I think it's just gonna escalate things, and that's obviously the plan, right? It's just to continue to escalate as time goes on, and I don't know. I don't see any reason for it. I don't see why Iran. Like I said, what Iran has to gain from it.
Well, I know
It
what we
just
have.
that's the biggest thing. Well, of course we have everything to gain from it.
Well,
What does
well,
Iran have to gain from posturing the way that they are?
well. I will say,
Hey, Cameron Michael in the chat. What's
what's
up,
up,
dude?
Cameron? I have to say there is one specific thing to be gained on our part, and I say our part with quotes around our.
Right, the
Um,
U.S. Yeah.
well, on our part, an incumbent president is sitting president in wartime is
Mm.
pretty much guaranteed a shoe in an election. I've said this
I don't.
before,
Yeah, I
and
know. I don't think
and
that would
if
be the case this time, though.
but
To be honest.
if there was any impetus to goad someone into goading us into war, that would be a good impetus. That would be a motive.
Yeah, but I don't think that Trump is more of a unique case than the previous the
You
previous presidents, in that he's either so basically people have decided already if they're going to vote for him or not.
no, I
I
don't
mean,
think
it's
that's
already.
true.
I think it's already decided. Yeah, I
I
really do. Just like last election, people had decided already that they were going to vote for him or not.
Cameron,
Right? They decided.
go
What's
ahead.
up?
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, people had already decided in 2016 whether they were going to vote for Trump or not, and a lot of people didn't want to vote for Hillary either, so they voted third party. That's why we had such a big turnout for third parties. But so I don't think, because I think that going into war with Iran is actually going to alienate a lot of Trump's base. It's going to, make them kind of wary of him. I don't think that they're going to vote Democrat based on if we do go to war with Iran, but I think it'll bring a lot more to the third parties, which may or may not benefit him depending on where they go, but it probably won't.
I have to disagree there on a couple of things. I don't think that the voters' minds are made up because we're in a political climate over the last decade plus. I would almost say the last 2 decades where we have become more and more hot or cold. It
Hmm.
depends on you have no idea what the current scandals are going to be in 2020 when voting time comes, right? It's all dependent on what's going on in October. A lot of
Well, I
that is
do
going to
with Trump.
matter. But it goes without saying that you know, a sitting president in a time of war, he usually
Yeah,
gets, he will,
historically, yes, yeah,
historically,
but
he is
I
going to
just think
take
that
it.
this is different.
And you
Yeah.
have accused this man of playing 4D chess.
Yes, I have.
And this is definitely 4D chess right here, where he finds a way to provoke Iran into provoking us or the UK or the United, NATO into a war situation.
I mean, it's possible, but at the same time, I think that it's mostly other people who are either pushing him to make this decision or making the decision and then telling him about it. Because he doesn't just get to decide troop movements,
No, 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 no,
which
no,
includes
no,
fleets.
no. But
So,
he's. I would love to see his Twitter DMs. I'd love to see who he's
um,
talking to on Twitter.
yeah, I doubt that he's having a lot of Twitter conversations. I'll bet you they're mostly phone calls and things like that. I mean,
I'm
you
sure
don't.
some of them are.
I'm sure he does have some Twitter DMs, but
I'm just
you have to
saying.
understand that Twitter can see every DM that you or I or anyone else sends or
Ah,
receives. So to have a private company
hmm.
privy to potentially classified information, I don't think is going to happen.
Well,
Or if it does, then that's highly
Hillary got
irresponsible.
away with it, so
Well, yeah, but he can't.
that's what he
He's
would
not going to
rest
get
on.
away with that.
That's what he would
Yeah,
rest on.
yeah, it's not going to
So
happen.
speaking of getting away with stuff, Okay, since we're on the subject of the Orange Man, and yes, midget, I agree completely. Cameron should be on the show, but I believe Cameron suffers from what I like to call stage cowardice. Is that what what's the term? He won't come
I
on
would say that's
because
probably true.
he's
But
afraid.
no, no. The thing is, he has political aspirations, and so coming on our show would probably be very bad for him in that case. And
No,
so,
John, look at who we are. I
well,
mean,
yeah, but
it could
he's on the
launch
left.
him. It could
He's
launch
on
him.
the left though. If he makes one slip up, it doesn't matter how gay he is. He's fucked,
I
and not in a good way.
I will talk. I will, but see, he's got to get his feet wet somewhere. Might as well be on a show that only gets 10 to 15 views per video. I mean, what the hell, John? A little duct
Yeah,
tape presentation. I mean, this is back in the day. We would call this public service,
public access. Yeah,
public access. Yeah.
yep,
Um, so
it's true.
and that's where politicians got their feet wet, was going on public access stuff. So
Hmm.
there you go, Cameron. We're good feet wetters, and that could be taken lots of ways. Just
He's
saying.
probably not even watching anymore, knowing
Right? He
him.
came on just to so we would see
Just to say
him.
that,
So
right?
we
Just so
would
that,
see him.
right? Just so that he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I totally watched your show, guys. It was cool," but
Yeah.
he
No, I
can't
didn't
like
feel it.
name anything about it. Yeah,
Right. I didn't feel like saying anything, and yeah, I was busy.
yeah,
Yeah, that Cameron kid.
yep. See, Midget B's already got the headline, or not the headline, but one of the lines in the article. The show is known for its homophobic, racist moderators.
Yes,
BuzzFeed. Yeah, it's true.
we have
We are known
definitely
for that.
given off some major homophobic and racist vibes
Racist.
on this show.
Yeah,
I can't believe some of the language we use.
yeah, it's crazy.
So, John, Orange Man, he came out and he talked smack to 4 congresswomen last week or whenever it was, early in the week. And so finally, someone was fed up.
The four horse
Al
people of the apocalypse.
Al Green out of Texas, and
Hmm.
he has introduced articles of impeachment against Donald Trump, which is, of course, I mean, okay, great, you're going to bring it before the House. Good luck getting it
Yeah,
through the House, and then
right.
through the
The
Senate.
Senate. Yeah.
But I mean, Democrats were kind of walking away from that talk. Maybe almost like they were getting ready to refocus their efforts on maybe, I don't know, a presidential candidate that could go up
Yeah,
against
perhaps they
Donald
want to
Trump.
win an election,
Right.
maybe.
So they were starting to distance themselves from this talk, but he prompted this. And, okay, I'm going to say this, because we're known as having homophobic, racist moderators and overtones. When it's all said and done, Al Green is an African American Democratic representative from Texas, and the comments that were made on Twitter were said to be racist because of
Because
because the context was kind of twisted, but it was a very twistable context. I mean, we'll leave it out there. He leaves context very available to be twisted or
right, and that's kind of the point,
scrutinized,
right? What he
right?
does,
Is he 4D in that way, John?
Not all the time, but I think sometimes he is. Yeah.
So anyway, basically, Al the man said, what was it he said? I believe if we don't do this, the president will only intensify his ugly behavior. It just seemed to me that we should bring these articles before the House of Representatives so that we could not only condemn him, but impeach him so that he will understand that there are some boundaries.
So stunning and brave. Wow.
Now, John, so this opens up a broader question. In effect, this guy is approaching the these articles of impeachment from a character standpoint, right? Who this guy is, the
Hmm.
shit that he talks on Twitter, and all of that. So it's going to boil down to the character, the representation of our government. Is that an impeachable offense?
I mean, no, I don't think so. I
Right?
mean,
Okay.
it just comes down to I don't like him. That I don't think that's an impeachable offense. Otherwise, each president would be impeached
Okay.
every single time
So
because somebody doesn't like him. So, like, it just
okay.
makes no sense. No,
So
go ahead.
well, without going into the good, bad, and ugly, pretty straight. Give me a straightforward answer. If I'm, or tell me if I'm wrong. You agree with Trump saying the things that he does in the sense that he can say what he wants to say, but
Hmm.
at the same time, you agree that it's not, and I'll use the historical definition of presidential and respectable behavior we would expect from a president. Would you agree with that? He's perfectly fine to say what he does, but it's not representative of a president as we know it from the past.
As we know of it in the recent years, yes, but I mean, if you look at like historical, what presidents have said in the past, that he's pretty tame compared to a lot of them. It's just that they didn't have Twitter back then.
Well, educate me. So, can you give an example?
Oh man, Cameron would actually be the person to talk about this with.
Right,
He's pretty
Cameron.
autistic when it comes to presidential knowledge.
Cameron, can you give us, if you're out there and you're not just
Yeah.
buzzing, you didn't just buzz through. Give us an example of a president that was as outlandish as Trump
Oh
is.
man, I'm trying to think of a good example, but I'm having a hard time. I know. I think it wasn't it Hamilton that was in a bunch of duels.
Mm.
I mean, they were insulting each other back and forth, especially him and Burr,
But
Aaron Burr,
honor was the
or
current
Hamilton.
black back then, right? I mean, it was all about honor. Duels were about honor most of the time, right? I mean, there was a
Yeah,
thing.
but it's
There was
because
a.
they were insulting
It
each
was
other.
it was trendy.
Teddy Roosevelt, Andrew Jackson. Yeah, I mean, they would. I mean, they would just say shit, and I mean, it was acceptable at the time. But if they had said those to what they said then today, that would be a
Right.
huge
So
problem.
so
But
there.
I think it's just Twitter is the main difference, and the fact that people didn't like him to begin with.
Well,
That's the issue.
think about what you just said though. It
Hmm.
was acceptable at the time.
Hmm.
So then that becomes the next question: is what Trump says
Well, it
acceptable
wasn't
in the present time?
okay. So back then, I'm sure I don't have, like I said, I don't have all the
Hmm.
the shit in front of me, but
Right.
I'm sure there were dissenters back then as well. I mean, you had one-term presidents back then too, who got uh, didn't get reelected for a second term. Um, so obviously there would be people who were saying, "I don't like what he's saying now," but enough people did. So it's not like it was acceptable unanimously throughout society. And that's how it is today. You just get to see a lot more of the dissent, and you get to see a lot more of people accepting it and people liking it. You get to see a lot more of the discourse now than you did back then because you had the newspaper and that was pretty much it, and then the people that you would talk to on a day-to-day basis in
Uh,
your area, and that was it.
okay. So let me put it let me put it out there in an example. So, at one point in this country, if you were the president of the United States, it was acceptable to use the N word in dialogue, speeches, conversations, whatever. You could use that word because it was just common vernacular. It was just part of the dialogue, right? So, if you use
Mm,
Negro, if you
yeah, I was
use,
going to say they usually use that. They
it
didn't
was
really.
still inflammatory from a racist standpoint in the
Well,
in
that
the
was more
present
just an
day. In the
ethnicity. That was
no
just in the present day. Yes, in
in
the
the
present
present
day.
right.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah. At that time, it was not.
we can
Yeah.
still equate that in present time to using the N word, right? because
Hmm.
I mean that's another word that's been appropriated by the African American community. They can use it as they want, but we shouldn't. So at one point in time, those two words, one being more accepted than the other, but still it was used commonly. So if in the present day a president didn't agree with that being a racist word, and we'll go with Negro, and he used it, in the present day, it would not be acceptable. He would be seen as racist. So it would something like that constitute character unbefitting a president and act as impeachment, right? So, and this is just somebody exercising free speech, the president using a word that is going to brand him as a racist in the eyes of most people because he continues to use it. So even that in of itself, now I know this is a little bit more extreme than Trump to an extent, but this is an extreme that calls into question the same principle. So is it not the court of opinion that determines whether or not that's acceptable behavior by the president?
I mean, so again, you're always going to have people who say yes, it is, and you're going to have people who say no, it's not. And apparently, Midget B is under fire right now. No, he said, I'm pretty sure that was shots fired a bit down the block around the corner. Holy shit,
Shots
dude.
fired. Lock your
Well, yeah.
doors.
Yeah, dude, I was going to say, be safe, man. Go
Yeah.
inside, hang out.
Yeah.
Like,
Don't. Yeah.
yeah, don't fuck
Yeah.
around.
Hide.
Get your shotgun out, get the attack kitties ready to go.
Jump in jump in something. Jump in a bunker. Go in a bunker.
Yeah, dude. No, his
Um,
place is kind of a bunker in a way, so
yeah.
he should be all right.
I mean,
But
so what happens there, John? How does that
it's
work?
just it's gonna have to be just solved with the ballot box in 2020. So
So
I mean, it's
character.
important that everyone goes out and votes for who they think is going to be the best one to run the country.
So ultimately, there's not a line with the character of the president, right? There's not a line that he.
I know. I think it changes based on the person, obviously, and the current political climate in the country and
Um,
the world in general.
do you think that this is a decision that should be left in the hands of the House and the Senate,
For
or
impeachment,
right? Or
well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of part of their job, right?
I, to be honest with you, since we elected him, I would almost think that that's the kind of thing that should be put to an impromptu vote of the people, and we should have a mechanism in place to make that happen.
Mm.
Because impeaching a president, because the division in this country that it would cause, just going through the proceedings alone, and then God
Hmm.
forbid he's impeached, the rift that it's going to cause. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that our representatives are going to represent us properly in this. I mean, there's going to be a ton of people sitting around going, why didn't my representative vote for impeachment? Others are going to be, why did my representative vote for impeachment?
Hmm.
And all the different variations therein. Um, it's, I don't know. I'm a little miffed that it got put forward at all over this, you know,
Yeah,
but on the flip side,
kind
you
of.
know me, it's like this is everything I've always said about him. This is the problem with him as
Right.
president.
But this is also something that we knew about him before he even got elected. So to try and say like, oh, this is the one thing, it's like no, we all
Well,
knew
well,
what we were getting into. And hang on, so you mentioned before about a direct vote, um, to see if he should be impeached. Well, the impeachment isn't a removal from office. So what I think should happen is if it does get to impeachment, afterwards give that vote to the people to see if he should be removed from office. But I'm not saying that I'm not. That's not what I'm advocating for. I'm just saying that I think that would be the better way to go about it, rather than voting directly on whether or not he's impeached. If that makes sense.
yeah, it does. Yeah, ultimately, it's It's a mess. It's a stupid mess. Um, I was going to ask you something at the beginning of that when you said, hold on.
Oh yeah.
And I,
Oh yeah, voter fraud. That's true. Yeah, fuck that. Yeah, that's true. Fuck the people voting. People don't need to vote.
well, yeah,
There's too
it's,
much voter fraud. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Obviously, I do want people to vote, but we do need to have more accountability, especially for Broward County,
well,
which is the worst, the worst county in all of the entire country with voter fraud.
now see, you say accountability, when you're talking about voter fraud, and
Hmm.
that brings the question that I was going to ask you to mind. Um, but when do we draw the line in the sand with a president that we think is pushing too far? How do we draw the line? Like, and say, look, dude, corral it in. I mean, isn't it acceptable to draw a line in the sand with this guy, or do we keep letting him push as far as he wants? Because his rhetoric continues to amp up.
I mean, I don't think it's any different than it's ever been. It really seems like it's the same stuff, that he's always said.
Okay,
I
then
think
when is
it
enough
just
enough?
affected. Well, no, I mean it just affected. The only reason people care more now is because it affected the people that they like.
Well,
Is why
I
it
mean,
affected AOC and Ilhan Omar and that one other chick and the other chick and whoever.
this is how the caring has been. I mean, and it seems like as
Yeah.
soon as we get to a point where we're not caring as much about what just happened,
Hmm.
he sparks something else off so that we are caring about that. He is constantly keeping it
Because he knows
in
it
our
works. So
face. But
if
yeah,
we stop having that work, then we can deal with the actual issues instead of wondering whether or not his tweets are racist, as if tweets are fucking news. God damn it! I'm so
well,
sick of tweets
but
being
he
news
wants them
in
to be
general.
news.
Right, and the media, like I said before, about the media, about he and the media having a symbiotic relationship. The media perpetuates this idea that tweets are fucking news. It's tweets. Dude, I mean, listen to the ridiculousness of that word, tweet. And the media says it constantly. Oh, look at his tweets. A tweet? What the fuck is a tweet? I mean, it's so
It's how
fucking
the
stupid. God
president.
damn it.
It's how the president makes the population dance.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying that, but the media is the one who are also making, like, carrying it forward, boosting his signal.
Well,
Showing everyone
sure,
here's how. So he's saying everyone dance. The media is saying here's how you dance.
right.
It's just it's ridiculous. It needs to fucking stop.
But that's his whole thing, right? That's what he's wanting to have happen. He's chumming the waters. They have
Hmm.
no choice because we have to, there's a million news sources out there now, so everybody has to jump on whatever little piece of chum they can get. Because I'm sorry, you to pull up news on Google
Oh
any
yeah.
given time, right? And you're flooded with all sorts of insane shit. So he chums the water, they grab onto it, and they run with it in multiple directions, and he eats it up, and he waits till the counts are going down on the comments and everything about the
Hmm.
tweets that he just put out, and he rolls something else out. And if you look at his tweets, they kind of go in waves. He goes into a spiky nattering on somebody, and then he flows into Melania and I just
Hmm.
did this, these great people, and then ramps it back up again. It's a roller
Yeah.
coaster with him, and he takes us on this ride. And I'm just asking, when do we say, "Hey, can we? When can we just stop, catch our breath, not ride this fucking roller coaster
See,
again,
that's the
and
thing.
just
You're asking him to stop the ride when you could just get off. You know what I mean? And I think that's what the media needs to do, especially if they want to really fuck with him. That's what they need to do is stop covering him. I know it's never going to happen because they can't not do it. But if they really wanted to get under his skin, if they really wanted to affect him, they would stop talking about him because he cannot handle that. He needs to have the attention on him, and he needs to be directing the attention of the media. If they
well,
stopped doing that, I don't know how he would react. He wouldn't even know what to do, I would imagine.
see,
I mean, it would be absolutely ridiculous.
Mitch says turn off Twitter. Simple, but it's not that simple.
It's not, no.
It's really not because I mean I, as soon as one of those tweets hits, 30, 40 news outlets are pushing a story forward. And so, I mean, you, I mean, to try and tell me not to look at world news, not look at news and what's going on at
Mhm.
this point in my life is like telling me to hold my breath and not pass out. You know,
Yeah.
it's impossible. Like it's just I can't. But and you're flooded with it. Like
Hmm.
it's I can get 3, 5 different takes very quickly in my news feed on an article because there's suddenly multiple spins on it immediately. Oh my God. And that's the other part is the spins and the way, like you said, is it intentional the way he does these tweets, the way he puts it in there? Is he
Yeah.
really that brilliant or is he just speaking off the cuff? Because when we see him ad lib, not on a
Well, so
teleprompter,
there's a big difference between speaking off the cuff and tweeting
mm,
something because he's got time to sit there and really,
back it up and rethink it.
right,
And yeah,
rethink
yeah.
the wording and word it just right. So there's a big difference. And
Is
I
he,
found that about myself is that I'm a lot more articulate, in text than I am in person or on camera, just because I can sit there and really mull over what I'm trying to say and get the point across or whatever. That's something I'm trying to work on, but that's beside the point. Um, so I think obviously it's easier for him to tweet something and play 40 chess than it is for him to just speak off the cuff in front of millions of people. You know, so
um,
that's why we see his tweets be the way they are in one way, and then him talking off the cuff in a completely different, non-charismatic way. You know.
so knowing that so many people, which in a sense is a good thing. So many people are following all of this that goes on, all of the crazy Stepford Wives action happening in Washington. Is it, that's where I come back to this 4D chess, this thinking of his and this playing the
Mhm.
media and playing the American people. Is this the kind of manipulation and puppeteering that we want from a president? I
I mean,
mean,
is it what we want? No,
right. So that brings me back
but
to how do
but
we
that's
draw
not
a line in the sand?
the only way is to change the culture. I mean, just impeaching him would do nothing, or removing him from office would do nothing to solve that
Well,
systemic problem,
and
the
and
root of the problem.
and I'm not saying impeachment. I'm just asking. So how do we
Yeah.
draw a line in the sand? Because asking to change a culture to accommodate a president seems ludicrous to me. you know, I mean that just
Well, I don't think that's
seems
what he's doing, though.
well. But that's what you
He's
suggested.
appealing
We
to
just
one.
have to
Well, no, no,
change the
no, no,
culture.
no, no. I'm saying if we want to stop him from doing that,
Mm,
then the culture needs to change to where that is so unacceptable that it's not going to be electable. So someone who would do something like that would never get elected.
well,
And the only way to change the culture to do that is to, first of all, stop being such pussies and being offended at everything left and right. Because if no one was offended by, the kind of stuff that he says, then he would be completely ineffective. Nothing that he says would matter. People would be looking at the actual issues and not just what word did he use, and who is he going against. No, it would be like, oh, fuck this guy. He's not representing us where his policies are shit. We'd actually be looking at the real issues.
I believe that he has got us. He has turned America into the greatest reality show of all time.
Yeah.
That is what we've become. We are a
And yeah, I
reality
agree with
show.
Midget B here too. How about asking the media to accept a culture? How about asking them to shift the Overton window a bit towards liberalism? Yeah, I mean, I would like it to go. It's amazing because like liberal is supposed to be the left, but liberal is actually far to the right of where a lot of these people are, especially in the Democratic Party these days. You
Well,
know,
liberalism is, we. Uh, I would agree. I think liberalism has become more authoritarian from the standpoint, you know,
well, no,
is
see,
now they want their freedoms enforced, right?
well, see, that's
But
the
in
thing, right?
whacked out ways.
That's the thing, right? Liberalism is an ideology, set principles, and set, I guess, guidance. Things to guide the country, or the world, or whatever it's influencing. So the ideology doesn't change. It's the people within the ideology
Sure,
change so much that they are no longer within that ideology. So people who would say that they're a liberal are typically not.
sure.
They don't fall under the definition of a liberal, and so they'll hide behind those principles when it suits them.
See, I
But when
see.
it doesn't, then they're going to go more authoritarian. So they go more to the right, even though they call themselves left. They'll
Sure,
go more to the far, far right,
sure,
being authoritarian. Right? If you use the libertarian to authoritarian like scale, they'll be moving more towards authoritarian. Whereas
sure.
liberalism is supposed to be,
Of course,
on this side.
right. And want less government, want less
More
government.
personal freedom.
Right,
Yeah,
less government involvement,
liberalism.
more personal
That's a,
freedoms about
yeah, and that's what
and
liberalism is. It's not.
but at the same
There
time,
is a difference between libertarianism and liberalism, and the main
sure,
difference
no,
is
no,
going to
no, I
be the
get that.
amount of government.
Sure,
Right.
and I
Right.
understand liberals would need more government than libertarians, but on the same note, it's that the authoritarianism that they're seeking is not about necessarily the things that they want you to be liberal about, which is things we'll use examples like smoking pot and abortion and things like this. Those
Hmm.
factor in, but hate speech and these kind of
Yeah.
things. They're calling themselves liberals because they want everything to be equal. That's the problem I think that they're running into
Well, see, I
is
think
they want
that's.
equality, but they want regulated equality, and they think that's
Mhm.
liberalism.
Well, see, no. So yeah, maybe some people do kind of mistake that for liberalism, but I think the fault is with like right wing sources, news sources like Fox News and things like that, who just call them the blanket term liberal when they're not
Mm-mm.
liberal.
Mm-mm.
Right?
They're
They're
just
socialists,
left,
they're communists, they're,
right?
any kind of other authoritarian ideology. Liberalism in itself is not an
No,
authoritarian ideology.
and I think liberalism is dying off. I do. I mean,
Yeah,
I see myself as a liberal still.
I used to. Yeah,
To a certain extent, I see myself as a liberal. Yes, I have shifted more towards conservative as I've gotten older, family, kids, all of that. I've talked
but there's
about
a lot
this
of
before.
overlap between the two.
Sure,
That's
there's a
that's the thing. That's
lot.
why they could get along before. They
Right,
can't now, but they used to be able to get
right.
along. One way or another because there was a lot of overlap between the two principles.
But I
But
think liberalism is going the way, based on our present culture, and I think social media is going to keep this happening in some way, shape, or form in perpetuity. I don't think we're going to shift away from this. Liberalism is dying much the way libertarianism has died. And nobody wants to bury libertarianism, but
no.
it's died because we had a libertarian system at one point. When we first started out, we understood what it meant to be libertarians, and
Well, I think
we
it was more that it was
but
impossible to be authoritarian in this country until a certain point. Because I mean, the
right,
point of the government is to expand. I mean that's
sure,
why the House and the Senate, their job is to draft legislation. That means more laws. Their
sure,
job is continuously create more and more laws.
which diminishes libertarianism overall,
Right. So
especially when you've
yeah.
got a federal government that especially when you have people saying, we need the federal government to
Right.
make legislation about
But see,
this
that largely
for
didn't
everyone.
start until just before the Civil War.
Sure,
That's really when the federal government started grabbing up power,
right,
and then once they won the Civil War, they consolidated that power. They really got a hold of that power
sure, and
because they were able to go through the Restoration, era and all that.
it was a long, slow death, but it happened over time, and people try and keep it alive, but I think libertarians are too far stretched on what their belief system is, and I don't
Oh
think,
yeah,
and most of them, a lot of times you really are going to run into a conversation about, okay, so what you're telling me is you do want legislation
mm,
on certain things, and we begin to get into this, how much legislation, how much government
right.
is it, right? And so then we get into, and then then I open up the can of worms. Well, how do you prevent a state government from becoming a smaller federal government? You know,
Yeah.
to be
Well, it'd be a lot
libertarian, you've got to get
easier.
down to the city level.
It'd be a lot easier for a state to overthrow their state government than
Well,
it would
just
be nationwide.
from location, yeah, I get that, but still,
But also,
corruption is
what?
corruption.
Oh yeah, and there's no way that corruption is not going to exist with the government. They go hand in hand.
Right.
It's going to happen no matter what.
But I don't think we can bring libertarianism back. I don't think it's possible in this day and age, and not with the cultures that we have in this country. And I
Yeah.
pluralize that because we have a lot of varying cultures, and we can't get our heads together.
Yeah, that is kind of a problem. It does require homogenous thought in a lot of ways, and that is one of the big problems. And that's a criticism that I will, openly give, and that I'll, enthusiastically give towards libertarians, is that they just can't be unified
Right.
on anything
Right.
at all. I mean, other than like the NAP, but then there's the interpretations on what violates it and what
Right.
doesn't. So even that they can't really agree on.
I truly believe when you get down to the root of it all, it really does boil down to what each libertarian believes is the right amount of government. Because you can talk to some that say there should be no government at all, it should all be state governments, and then I'm like, okay, so we don't
Right.
have United States anymore. Oh, well,
Right.
they do overarching. Sure, overarching, but that's how we started out, was overarching. And, get it through your head. You're going to ask them for more. You can start
Oh
back
yeah.
at square one if you want, but you're going to ask them for more governing rules
I
so that
mean,
everybody is all in line no matter where you go in this country, unless you
maybe
just
that's the
don't want a
solution.
United States anymore.
Maybe that's the solution. It's just to have a revolution every 50, 100 years. Just start over from square one and work your way back up to the point of tyranny, break it all down again, and start over. Maybe that's the solution. And I do want to acknowledge, though, what Midget B said there in the chat before we get too far away from it, because that is actually a really good point, where he says people turn away from their personal principles when they see their enemies abandoning principles themselves. And yeah, it is very difficult to maintain principles when others do not maintain their own principles but expect you to maintain not only your principles but their principles as well.
Right.
So I can absolutely see that. Yeah, but that's what leads people to become authoritarian themselves. And then you have people like Seawall. No, I'm just kidding. I see you in the chat there though. But no, it's where you just have two authoritarian sides fighting against each other to decide which version of
Sure.
authoritarianism survives, and they're both garbage.
Right. And
So, like, why? No, that's not what we want at all.
but at the same time, they effectively kill the libertarian idea when they tell you everything they're doing is about protecting your freedoms, protecting your rights, and
Yeah,
libertarian comes in and says, "Oh, you're
you have to
sacrificing
protect
liberty. You're
yourself.
sacrificing liberty, and you
Well,
have to
no, it's
protect
more like they
yourself,
come by
right?
and say, "Yeah, you have to protect yourself." Right,
Right?
which
And less
is very
government. We don't want."
unappealing.
And people are
And then
like,
yeah,
"Well, the Democrats or Republicans are already saying they're doing this for me, and they carry more weight." You know, I've I'm beginning to come to the conclusion that the libertarianism either has to take on a whole new tack, change everything, and try and accomplish the same goal, or get off the playing field, because it's an idea that just, I mean, again, how many libertarians can we really point to in Washington?
in Washington, not many, but like
Right.
like I've said, I think it was Monday about how there's a lot of them in local governments throughout the
Sure.
country.
Sure.
There's tons of them around. But that's the problem, is that they're not going to get much further than where they are, than some
Right.
city government or some, even to the state, government. They're not going to get much further than that.
Right.
And
And
it's really part of a problem,
it's
with
just like there's
libertarians, is that they're not going to try and go to the federal government.
yeah, it's just like there's millions of people in this country that follow their own religion in their, in how they live their lives, their own
Hmm.
spirituality. But then very few of them are ever going to start a church, right? If any. So yeah, maybe these guys need to, does it become a point where it's like if you really want to be a libertarian and get on the stage, you've got to brand yourself one of the two parties? Is that
Right, and
the
that's what a lot of them have done. Is gone Republican. They've run. Ron Paul has run as Republican a few times.
right? But
You know what I mean? It's unfortunate because that Republican Party is almost as bad as the Democratic Party. They're just not as in shambles, or at least mostly unified. The Republican Party is.
Mitch says one thing we haven't tried is corporate feudalism. Don't
You
worry,
know what?
it's
No,
coming.
hang on. Fuck corporate feudalism. Let's go back to feudalism. So long as I can be a lord, that's all I want. I want to be a
Is that
noble,
right?
and that's it.
You could do.
Like I don't want to be king or anything stupid like
what
that.
stops you from doing that now?
Just give me a castle and let me collect taxes.
Why do you
from
have
the
to be
serfs.
given a castle?
That's how that works. You're given a
No,
castle. You're given. You're given.
it's usually passed in from the family, or you have to.
Usually,
There's
but not
some
always.
reason why you're made a lord of said castle. I mean, what have you
Yeah.
done to earn it?
Um,
And there's your list. So
I can-
anyway,
I
what,
can use a sword pretty well. Pretty decent at that. I can fight for the king.
what else
you know?
have you got?
I can read. That's actually a huge
What else have you got?
advantage. That's a huge advantage in
Not in the
feudalism.
present
Are you
day
kidding
and
me? Being able
age.
to read. Whatever. We're not talking about the present day and age.
Yes, we are. Oh, we're gonna time machine. Gotcha. Never mind. I didn't realize we were gonna
Time
need
travel.
Mr. Peabody here
That's right.
in his Wayback Machine.
All
right, so let's.
I can read. I mean, it's pretty awesome.
So since we're talking about libertarianism, I want to bring something up because the House passed a motion, or what do you call it? Some legislation. It's got to go to Senate. A bill. They passed a bill to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2025. Okay, so that's about 5.5 years. It would reach that point from the $8 something or whatever it is right now, 7 something.
No, it's like $7.25, I believe. I think here in Florida, it's $8.25 is the minimum wage,
well,
and we're always higher than the federal minimum wage, which no one ever brings up. I mean, no one on the side of raising the federal minimum wages ever brings up the fact that the states can raise the minimum wage, their own minimum wage, anytime they want.
Sure,
but that's not good enough, right? We have to do it from the top down. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It's so fucking stupid. God damn it, these fucking people.
But when you have that there, the people see it as a benchmark.
I know people are fucking stupid, is why.
Well, yeah, but here's the question, John.
I just lose faith in humanity. Fuck it.
But from your libertarian standpoint, you would say no minimum wage at any level.
No federal minimum wage. If the state wants to set a minimum wage,
what's the difference?
Their business. Well, the difference is it's one size fits all, which with states, one size never fits all. There's richer states and there's very poor states. As they can't all handle the same minimum wage. They can't handle the same money output because they don't have the same amount of money.
It's got nothing to do with the state. It's got to do with the companies in the state.
Yeah, but how many small businesses are in states?
Well, depends on the population of the state, right?
You're just going to trample over small businesses, and that's the main problem.
Well, I understand.
Now, competition.
Don't get me wrong. I understand the impact on businesses with an increased minimum wage.
It stifles competition, allows major corporations to take more of a hold.
Sure, but
then you have to regulate them. So it's a.
But you can get rid of
cycle.
But the libertarian idea that taking away a minimum wage, and yes, you want to say have it on a state level, but still states who have the ability to have a minimum wage, and yet in many states, if not all states, it is next to impossible to live on a full-time job making minimum wage. Now,
don't make minimum wage.
Well, that's just it, John. Do we want to sit and argue that, nobody goes to work at, companies that only pay minimum wage when that's all that's required from a state? And if that's, 5 million jobs across the state, what, nobody's going to take those jobs. We have an expectation that people will take those jobs. People need
Mm-hmm.
some money, any money, but the cost of living, we outpace the minimum wage or wages constantly with the cost of living. I mean, the range between the two, the what is it you call the distance between the two keeps growing. I mean, it's serious stuff if you're making minimum wage. You know, I mean, when you're
Yeah,
talking
if you're
about,
making minimum wage, you're usually 16 or 17 making minimum wage, and that's fine because you're living with your parents at that time because you're not even 18 yet.
and
And then if you are still working one later, you're probably in college. If you're not, well then you stay living with your parents or have a couple of roommates and a three. You can get a 3 bedroom apartment, have 3 or 4 roommates. In fact, fucking Midget B here can tell you we had 4 guys living in a 2 bedroom
sure,
townhouse or 2 bedroom duplex. There were 4 of us. We bunked 2 people a room, and then sometimes we'd had someone on the couch. I mean, you do what you have to do to make a living to survive,
okay,
right? There's no reason why anyone should need at least a 1 bedroom apartment on their own.
right,
That's not the
and
government's business to
well,
ensure that happens.
no, I understand that it's not their business to ensure it happens, but the idea that companies are going to, if we got rid of minimum wage, even at the state level, companies are not going to come anywhere close to paying, you know, living wages then either. There's not going to be some
Hmm.
like major competition going on for people looking for jobs because everybody's looking for jobs, right?
No,
And
not right now. They're not. Right
sure,
now, it's no. Right
people
now,
are still going
there's
to
such.
work, John.
Yeah, they're going to work. Yes, but the unemployment is so low that guess what? Companies have to raise their wages in order to attract people to come work for them because there's
I
more open jobs than there are people looking for jobs. So they have to be competitive, and that's the whole point of it.
okay.
And that's what's happening right now. That's why I just got a $2 raise recently. Was because my boss is making sure I'm going to stick around and not go to the competition. I mean, obviously he said other things, but I know that that's the reason why. Because I'm being headhunted by other people in our same industry to go over there. I
But
mean, so
see,
the competition is what is going to drive the wages up. Can't artificially increase it. That's just going to increase the prices of everything, and then you're back to where you are now. You level the
okay,
cost of
so
living, and then you have to raise the minimum wage again. It's just a vicious cycle that just keeps getting people elected. That's the whole point of it. Is just to get someone elected. Like, look, I voted to raise the minimum wage, and you're just going to constantly keep getting people, reelected based on destroying our economy.
so
It,
how do we bring down the cost of goods so that we don't have the numbers of poor and medium income families in this country who can't get by better than week to week? How
competition,
competition for what? The goods? Companies are.
competition.
For,
Yes, competition for who is going to which stores. Yes,
I'm just no. I'm talking about how do we bring the price of goods down in the cost of living. The cost of living goes up, but wages are not increasing to keep up with it. But the companies are still making record profits year after year. So is there some
right.
disparity that I'm missing where, I
So
mean,
if you're not making enough money to survive at a job, you should be actively looking for another job
and
that
what,
will do that.
and you assume that every American can go get a better job, right?
I'm not assuming that
There's,
every
I
American
mean, there's
can. I
people
mean, so
that,
there's
that don't have a skill set and we want to go, okay, that's
yeah,
their fault and that's fine, but they've got to take a minimum wage job. So
yeah,
they've got
and
to
so they
take,
can do that while they're gaining their skills, while they're doing whatever. Like I'll give the example of my dad, who's not a great example of this because he had kind of he was a general manager at a computer store back when that was a thing. When I was a very very young kid, and he spent all of his waking hours that he wasn't at work studying for certifications to get certified for different computer stuff like C++ and A+, and a whole bunch of other like Microsoft certifications. And after that, he started his own business and started doing like a computer repair thing, like business on the side. So he was working his job, his full-time job, and then doing computer repairs on the side and getting certifications. So he
Mhm.
worked constantly, and then he eventually got a job after looking for other things, getting this experience, looking for other jobs, and we moved here to Florida because he got a job here with a major company that was doing that sort of thing, and he started making real money after that. And that was when I was probably 11 or 12 years old when he started really making money. And so, I mean, he worked his ass off, making not a lot of money to, gain skills and all this other kind of stuff. And then started making money because he had marketable skills. And that's the thing that people need to do. But people are not willing to do that. They should just be given better wages because reasons. It makes no
Well,
sense.
it's it's hard for people in this country to look at the numbers and say, okay, I work for this company, and we can use one of the biggest retailers in the brick and mortar retailers in the world as an example. I work for this company, and they're showing record profits in the billions,
Hmm.
yet even with their increased minimum wage and my cut hours, I'm barely getting by.
Hmm.
Um, you know, so when people are looking at numbers like that, the federal government, somebody in the government saying, "Hey, we're going to raise the minimum wage, so your company's forced to pay you something that's closer to a livable wage." How do you not get people on board with that?
No,
How
it's
do they
obviously
know that
very
companies like the grocery store, food goes up when there's an oil crisis, right? Oil
yeah.
prices go up. They raise prices because of the cost to get the food into the store. When oil prices go back down, guess what didn't go down? The last three
Hmm.
times, the cost of food, and it's steadily increased. They just keep the price at that level, reduce the size
Yeah.
of packaging, and continue to charge the same amount or more.
Right. So when people stop buying ice cream, those prices have to go down because they're not making the profit that they were making before, and their shareholders get pissed off.
When is that going to happen? Because ice cream is
Well, it would
still
happen if people.
expensive as shit in smaller
Right.
containers. And I'm like, it's still not going down. And this is 15 years later, John. When's it going to happen? When does this sort out? Your free market, please.
But no, okay, so we don't have a free market right now. I've expressed
Oh,
this plenty of times. Right.
but
I'm
shouldn't it
advocating
still
for free market.
work?
No, because these places are subsidized by the government. So no, not at
Who
all.
is? My local grocery store?
Not your local grocery store, but chains and stuff. I guarantee they receive government subsidies
Why do you always assume everybody is getting
because they do.
subsidies? It's like you think
In one way or
everybody.
another, they are, and it's not even that. The regulations that are around them that stop competition from happening. Because I've given the example of my current job, right? The federal government, the Department of Agriculture, passed a regulation recently within the past year that all of our product has to be at least 6 inches above the ground, right? So and it has to be movable, which means that we had to buy a bunch of pallets to be able to move, the stuff out so we can sweep underneath it and all that kind of stuff. We had to build shelves, right? We spent over $100,000 on complying with this regulation. Now, luckily, we're a pretty established, company. We were able to afford that cost. But you know what happened? First of all, anyone who was trying to come up at that time to be a distributor was fucked. They had to either go way further into debt or just give it up altogether, which happened. Several of them did. And the price of all the goods went up because we had to be able to cover that cost. So everything that we sell now is more expensive than it was a year ago because of that one regulation. That was one, just
Okay,
one. So,
so
and that's one industry.
sure, and companies will take any opportunity to raise prices.
No, they had to in order to cover that cost that they
Sure,
just had
I
to
understand. That's
spend.
one one example of where somebody
Because he's still
had
got
to
to pay
raise
his
prices.
employees.
But that
Yeah, he
doesn't
still has to
mean.
pay his employees.
But when
Still has to pay the insurance that we get from him.
sure, but when oil prices go up and the cost of gas is $5 a gallon, I can
Which he's
promise you
also to pay.
the cost of your goods went up too.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm sure. I
And
wasn't there when that happened.
sure,
I'm sure.
but based on my experience in shopping at the damn grocery stores, their prices didn't go down either. So that is what I'm saying is, this capitalist environment. Seawald made a good point. He says
Seawall is making a good point right now.
he said, well, hold on. He said the record profits that they show are only a few percent
No.
profit.
Later on.
Hold on. I'll get to his other ones too. But those percentage profits that you're talking about on billions of dollars, yeah, that's a big number to the American public as a whole.
Yeah, so like I said, it is appealing to say we're just going to give everyone more money. That is very appealing.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
But
so how do you? Right.
I know. Yeah, exactly. You have to
So
let people know the consequences of doing that.
So Seawall says his father is the CFO of a regional grocery store, and I can tell you that when gas prices go up, people buy few products, and he sees sales drop. Right. The grocery business generally will have at best a high single-digit percentage profits, and the single largest cost to a company is labor. I understand how companies work, but again, percentages, single-digit percentage in profits on a large enough company is some substantial money, and those are the numbers that are put out by the media that people see. So when they see a company like Amazon who says, hey, we just turned in, I think it was something like $23 billion in profit and paid no taxes on it, and we're paying workers $15 an hour, but we're trying to automate everybody out, and $15 an hour, we're also going to cut stocks from you, this, that, and the other. Okay, those are things that impact the mind of the American public who are trying to pay their bills. And this is when something like this comes out. And I'm not promoting that we raise the federal minimum wage. I'm saying you cannot put something like this in front of a population of people that is primarily in the 99% and tell them that this is not a good thing for them, especially when it ramps up over the course of 5.5 years.
So what I would do then is show them how it's a bad thing. You can't just, I guess you can't, I guess you have to tell them, but you have to show them as well. So like you just said with Amazon, right? Yeah, they're $15 minimum wage. That's what everyone wants, or at least the people who are advocating for this. That's what they want: $15 an hour minimum wage. They think that's going to make their lives better.
Right.
And then show them, look what's actually happening when that's the case.
And they did.
Which is that your hours are going to get cut, your stock options are getting cut. Good luck getting enough hours to qualify for health insurance. Good luck. Remember that health insurance that everyone's worried about?
Or you're going to be working like a prisoner for that $15 an hour, right? I mean, we've seen that side of it too, right?
Exactly. And that's if you don't get laid off. That's if you're lucky enough to have a job after that.
But we are not a culture of show me. We are, this country is more
culture of feel good.
More about right now. And people see a $15 minimum wage, just like I talked about with Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang will have followers on board because he says $1,000 a month.
Yep.
So when they say $15 an hour, people are saying, hey, I like that idea. We've historically seen the federal minimum wage as a benchmark where other states should comply and go above and beyond, or companies should go above and beyond to set their standard of offering a livable wage. We've had that toned into us subtly over the years. They see this, and that's what it tells them. This is the next logical step. This is how we can attempt to meet this growing crisis. But at 2025, $15 an hour is going to be pretty much the same thing as your $10 an hour right now. They don't want to hear that, but that's the truth of it.
Yeah, I can make more money right now, and I can't fault people for having that view because I had it for so long. I fell into the same trap for such a long time that it took me wanting to see other ways of thinking that got me around the other way, and that's the only thing I can think of doing is trying to explain it to people, and that's I guess that's what we're trying to do here with this show, is trying to put the ideas out there to
right,
show people, like, look, not everything that looks like it's great is, not everything
exactly.
is made of gold,
And don't get me wrong, John. I think I think that companies should pay this kind of money. I mean, even a company like McDonald's, well, okay, and I'm going to use them as an example from both sides of the coin. McDonald's as a corporation, their corporate stores, you should be making
Hmm.
$15 an hour or more in those, because the company is
Yeah.
making hand over fist money. They can afford the labor cost. They can, and I don't want to hear any bullshit about, oh, we're only going to make 5 billion this year as opposed to 6 billion. I don't want to hear that. You should be paying people. Now, then on the flip side, you have franchisees that run 2 or 3
Hmm.
McDonald's, $15 an hour in labor costs. That's going to kick them in the balls if they're not careful, if they're not getting some
Yeah.
sort of subsidization from the corporate entity or somewhere else. It will. It'll kick them in the balls. But then again, McDonald's is going to automate much of their business anyway. They're already working towards that trend to address this. I am aware that raising the minimum wage, even over a 5-year period, means that within the first year, when we get around $9 an hour as a minimum wage, we will start to see a gradual increase in the cost of goods. It will go up
Hmm.
as a response to a $15 minimum wage. That's the problem
Right.
that I have,
Well, that's what they're
is
planning
that,
on. It's 9 now, but they're planning on it being
no,
15. So
well,
they're trying
right,
to raise the prices to recoup those losses, but
right.
in 6 years or 5.5,
Right, but
whatever it is. Yeah.
they're gonna
So
start raising the prices of goods to meet the $15 before it ever gets to $15, and
yeah,
that's what the people out there that say, "Oh yes, institute this minimum wage," they don't get that. They don't see the writing on the wall of what will happen from companies who don't want the increased labor cost, or that
yeah.
will offset it through the cost of goods. I don't know, John. I mean, there is no simple solution, because if I can, we can make the argument, you know, as I always will, from the standpoint of the common American, because that's how I think they look at it. My state isn't, they are above the federal minimum wage, but they still
Hmm.
don't do enough from a minimum wage
It's never
standpoint.
gonna be enough. That's the thing. It's never gonna be enough.
But
And I like what Seawall and Mitsubishi are talking about here, and it's the Heinlein model of uh, citizenship. And so it's, yeah, basically Starship Troopers. Um, he's the author of Starship Troopers, and so it's basically, you're not born with citizenship, so you're not
right,
born with the right to vote.
you
You are born with certain rights, right? Like this freedom
you
of
right,
speech, freedom to defend yourself, freedom of privacy, all these kind of
sure,
things. But you don't have the right to vote. But you still have to pay taxes and everything. And there's certain jobs that you can't get if you're not a citizen. So especially like teachers must be citizens, and it gives you a stake in voting. If you have to work to become a citizen, then you have a
sure,
stake in voting,
sure.
and so your vote matters more. You're
But that
gonna
but that runs contrary to
you're gonna
everything
spend your
American.
vote. Yeah, it does.
I mean,
But I mean, however, everything that Heinz said that was leading up to the Starship Troopers like universe is coming true.
right.
But
It's
it is
very
that
much
led to
speaks
the
to present day.
destruction of right. It's just, yeah.
It was very
So
prophetic.
I'm more and more on his side as it goes, because it is kind of a libertarian power fantasy. Like it's very much, it's
So
very
so
because everything it's very free, but at the same
yeah,
time
but you
you have to
require
work to
a
earn
very
that
high
freedom.
level of authoritarianism to enable that freedom, right? I mean, there
Not
has,
really though. Not
well, I
really,
mean,
because
you've got to have,
you can still have like the main character Juan Rico in Starship Troopers. His family was extremely wealthy, and none of them were citizens. So they had never participated in politics in the past 100 years. But his father was an extremely wealthy, businessman. So it's not like you can't be successful without being a citizen. It's just if you want to affect politics, you have to be a citizen and you have to know what the fuck you're talking about. Which, Yes, it's not exactly in line with like some kind of ANCAP libertarianism, but it's.
No, it
I
just
mean, it's
doesn't
pretty
align
damn
with our
close.
Constitution.
Oh yeah, no, it certainly doesn't.
Right? I mean,
Right? Yeah, it
there's
certainly doesn't.
there's the backbone of it
It's its
all.
own. Yeah, it's its own constitution.
I mean, if we did something like that, I mean, even implementing it, I mean, we'd have to draw a line and say, okay, this is the date. Anybody born before, after this date has to fall in line with this, or you're not a citizen.
Right,
But
you'd have to
everybody
grandfather
else gets
people in.
grandfathers in, right?
Yeah, you'd have to grandfather people in, obviously, and then in a generation, those people would be gone. It would start to pick itself up. And no, I disagree with Seawall there, saying taxpayer and landowners only could vote, which I know was originally the intent, behind voting.
But
Um,
you're not a
but no, I
landowner
think
anymore. So nobody's a landowner, right?
right. No one owns land anyway. You're just
Right.
so
So that kind of flies out the window there. I mean, there's no land anywhere. Sorry.
right. And under a Highline system, everyone would be a taxpayer too. So
We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. Eminent
man.
domain, bitches.
It's true. Yeah, Tenchi and I were having a conversation about
About what?
eminent domain.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of it's catch-22. It's
Yeah.
I think about it more whenever I see roads being widened and you start encroaching on somebody's
Right.
property.
Something
And
that's
I'm just
not so necessary to like,
right.
especially national defense or something, uh,
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. So,
yeah, shitty.
something I want to close the show out on, John, that I wanted to talk about earlier in the week, and we didn't really get a chance because we had other things going on. But I want to talk about one of your favorite topics, men's and women's equality. Because recently, the U.S. women's soccer team won the Women's World Cup for soccer, right? Woo!
Go America.
And so they were. There was a whole "let's get Me Too'd" out of this. It had been out of shape because there's obviously a pay gap in between the U.S. men's and women's soccer team. And one of the complaints was that, like, the U.S. women's team winning the cup brought larger viewership than the men's soccer league brought in.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know enough about soccer to know if these U.S. teams are funded by the government or how that plays out, where that money
No,
comes from.
I don't believe so. At least I don't believe so. But maybe
But then B, I have to
partially.
tell me if I'm correct that the biggest question comes into the popularity of the sports.
Right.
Doesn't
So
that factor
apparently,
into how much
well,
somebody gets
apparently the
paid?
women's soccer did get more, I guess, views than the men's.
But were
That
the men
probably has to do
competing
more with
for the
yeah,
cup? They were in the
yeah, of
were they in the
course.
finals for
Well,
the
no,
cup?
no, they weren't in the finals. No, but that's
Right.
the point, right? The viewership was higher for the women because they made it further, right?
Right.
But the problem, and what no one is mentioning, is that the amount that they were going to get paid was negotiated 2 years ago. So it didn't matter how much they got viewed this time. They weren't going to get paid more because they got more views this time because their pay was negotiated 2 years ago. Plus, the prize pool was already brought together.
But that shouldn't matter, John. The men are getting paid more now.
Yeah, right. So what they should do instead of making this fucking big hubbubaloo, they should negotiate for higher pay next World Cup. Right?
So
I mean that it's just, but I mean obviously what they're doing right now is they're making it a big story so that they can come to the negotiation table from a place of strength as opposed to coming at an even field. They're able to come and say, look, we have all these people behind us, right? So you better pay us more next time, and that's what they're gonna get it. They're absolutely gonna get it.
Well, what's going to help them is, are you familiar with deodorant?
Yeah,
You
vaguely. I
ever?
think I have some
There's
extra right
a
here.
there's a brand of women's deodorant called Secret. You've heard of it?
Yeah,
Blue, little blue, slim.
yeah.
Well, they decided after this controversy came out, they contributed $529,000 to the U.S. women's soccer team to offset that difference in pay gap. What do we call that when a company does something like that?
Wait, so what do they donate to exactly?
So they make a the deodorant brand plans is making a tangible commitment to the team's demand for equal pay. It told CNN Business, contributing $529,000 to the Women's National Team Players Association. Secret says it will donate $23,000 for each of the 23 players on the World Cup winning team to help close the pay gap. Secret also
Oh, there you
urges
go.
the organization to be on the right side of history.
Oh God, fucking A. So
So,
anyway,
so what do we
the
call that? What is that?
virtue signaling. So
Virtue signaling, folks.
yeah.
Here you have it.
So
John's
anyway,
got.
hang on, because the virtue signaling aside, right? They gave a shitload of money, presumably to the players, right? I mean, is that what happened?
Say that again.
They gave it to the players.
Yeah, each one of those players, they donated $23,000 to
There
each
you
of
go.
those players.
Free market wins again. Like, I mean, if people want to give, if corporations want to give them money for doing well, and maybe they'll have some sponsorship with them, and now they have more money.
Okay, so
Look at that! Look how that fucking works. How crazy is
now,
that? You don't have to regulate shit.
now,
You don't have to
dig.
demand and cry into the fucking void to get the shit you want.
Well, they
People
had to
will give it
cry.
to you if they think it's fucking worth it, won't they?
They had to cry into the void a little bit to get the donation.
To get the attention, yeah.
Right,
It's
right.
like,
So
yeah.
you gotta get the attention, right? So now, let's strip the veneer off and tell me what you really think about virtue signaling like that from corporations. Come on, tell me the truth, John.
I mean, it's typically a good marketing strategy.
Okay, so
Really, I mean, obviously, I completely disagree with it.
okay, there. That's what I was
I
going to
haven't.
hear.
Okay, yeah, but I haven't boycotted anything. Really, because most of the corporations who virtue signal, I don't use their products anyway.
Yeah, you
So,
probably don't use Secret deodorant,
right,
so I don't think that's going to play here for you.
but
But
not even that. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, not even that. Just most of the corporations who have virtue signaled in the past, I really don't. I don't use a lot of their products. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I think it is a marketing strategy because it gets their brand in front of a lot of eyes because people talk about it, whether they like it or whether they like you know the company or not, whether they like the virtue signal that they're giving or not. It gets it's name recognition, right? It gets their it gets people's eyes on the product, and that's the point. And yes, Seawall, yes, I do use deodorant. I have some
half
right
of
here actually.
half of all
So
deaths
fuck
in the
you.
line of work are women. Then they can talk. When half of all the deaths in the line of work are women, they can talk about equal pay. Yeah. I will always make that. We'll always look at that. Can look at that argument about equal pay because there are jobs women just don't want to do.
Yeah,
I don't
I
care
mean,
what you say.
how many female sewer cleaners? I mean,
Now, the funny thing is, it's like, if the right women will do those jobs. So, for
oh
instance,
sure.
if I were a
I'm not
woman,
saying there's none, but
right,
it's
right.
not half.
If I were a capable woman, in New York City, I would be trying to get on the trash slinging patrol.
Oh hell yeah!
Working for their
They make
they
100 grand. They make
over
fucking six
100
figures.
grand a
They make
year
six
for
figures. Fuck
5 days
yeah!
a week slinging trash.
What? Hell yeah!
What? Shut
I'm
up.
about that shit. I mean, yeah, your rent is 50,000 a month, but still, hey,
But most of them live in Jersey. They commute.
yeah.
And it was
Obviously,
funny.
yeah,
I saw that they're like, we live in a, it's like
yeah.
they're making bank. It's like
Oh hell yeah!
they're playing that cost of living game. Sometimes I wish that like there was a New Jersey close to every city Right. Like every city had a New Jersey that you could go
Oh
to.
yeah,
Because there are nice parts of New Jersey that are still classically cheaper than New York.
yeah, Yale.
Uh,
Oh, nice places that are cheaper, right?
right.
Is it
Yeah.
Yale? No, Princeton. Sorry, Princeton is in New Jersey. My
Yeah.
bad.
Calm
It's
down.
my fault.
I didn't mean
Yeah,
all of New
Princeton
Jersey.
is still an Ivy fucking league school, so whatever.
And mining and dying in the field of battle for our freedom. Hey,
Hey, to
women
be
are
fair
allowed
though,
on the
women
front
did
line
get that
now.
right.
They
Yeah,
are on the
women.
front. They're allowed to be on the front line now, right?
Yeah, that's true. Women are doing that now, so that's.
So you know,
But I just hope they didn't lower the standards. I haven't checked for in
and
a while to see what the standards were to pass boot camp because
and
they were different for men and women for a long time. I don't know what
yes.
they are now, but
And to virtue signal for the environment, Seawall, we don't want men in
we don't
mines
want anyone
either.
mining. Yeah, they need
Because
to learn to code instead of mining.
yeah, nobody should be mining. It's dangerous. And think about the canary population. Um,
That was good.
right?
Oh
Not
man,
many people going to get that. But is it half, and are they weakening the combat effectiveness of? Look, if are they going out in stripper
well, that's what I'm
shorts? Because that
saying.
would
That's what I'm
really
saying. As
weaken the
long as
combat effectiveness. But I think they're going out in a full gear, so it's not really that.
yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
no, that's what I'm saying too. As long as we don't lower the standards, and that's the main thing. You can't lower the standards to artificially increase the the what is disparity in any kind of job.
No, no,
I mean
not at all.
that's why our movies suck now. That's why anything that takes artistry sucks now is because we lowered the standards to go for equality. It doesn't fucking work. That's why they started using the what's called Kal-El art. I think is what it's called. I'm not big into all this stuff. So Midget B will probably yell at me and correct me in a moment.
Um,
But no, they use this one very simplistic art style for like animation and cartoons, things like that. Um, so that they don't have to worry about who's really good at being an artist. Rather, they can just choose the people who think correctly, and they can just choose people who look correct so
right.
that they can virtue signal their equality and their diversity and all this other nonsense.
Just real quick, in comment to something Sewell said, the generational gap does not condone the harming of canaries in any way, shape, or form. Thank you.
Not at all, no. But yeah, the
Nor
opinions of
nor
the chat
any
are not
carnal knowledge with canaries.
the the opinions of the chat do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the generational gap. We will disavow anything and everything that the chat says, even if we
Um,
agree with it.
Listen, I'm not going to say that this, how effective women are in combat within mixed groups with men. I will say that I think certain women would not reduce the combat effectiveness of men, whereas others could, and I could understand how that would happen. But I don't think it speaks to use the word gender as a whole, the sex, the female sex as a whole. Uh, I think it would just be purely dependent on individuals as to how that occurs. And yes, if you just take a random group of females that have joined the military and insert them with males, no. I would say that if you really wanted full combat effectiveness on the par that you're looking for, those women have to be vetted at that level of combat effectiveness and appropriately divisioned out into those groups.
Yeah,
But can you do that? Or would that be a bad thing? Is that
I think it would just take too much time and it. Yeah, it would just be too difficult to be able to get the right kind of woman in there. So I mean, so I'm saying keep the standards the same as for men.
right?
If they can make the same standards, they can put a 250-pound man on their shoulders and run them, 500 yards. Fucking, go for it.
Right?
Go be out there and
I mean,
do your thing. But
when it comes to the
if you can't do
military,
that, there should be no special circumstances for you. That is not a place
right?
where this equality nonsense belongs. But no, you're gonna get people killed that way. It's not a fucking good idea.
And I see the points that Seawall is making when he talks about
Yeah,
the differences in the two sexes and how men respond to women, the risks that they fall into and how it can affect those that they're in combat with. I get it. I understand it. I've got to
yeah.
say there's a lot to be said for a woman who's willing to put herself on the front line.
Hmm.
Mad
And I don't think a lot
props.
of them will. I don't think a
Right.
lot of them will, honestly. Most of them go in to be administrators or, some kind of auxiliary position.
Mhm.
They're not, most women don't go to the military to be grunts,
Yeah, I
you know.
can't. I can't say. I would never say as a whole women should not be allowed to. I just would say that just like men are done in the military, we specifically look at where they are best fit, and we determine that. And if they're trying to do something that they are not a best fit for, they are steered into a course that is the best fit for them or removed, one of the two. So the same process should apply. So just because you want to be in the military and want to be on the front lines doesn't mean you're capable of it. And that works the
Right.
same for men and women. Don't change the standard. Just
Right. But that's the
just
problem is it will
just the
be.
just focus on the evaluation
Hmm.
and factor in everything that needs to be. And hope that you don't come across as gender biased when you do it. Um,
Oh, I don't give a fuck about that. No.
Well, but
The
that's the
standard is
virtue
the standard.
signal that goes up,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah,
mean, we throw it
right.
up in the sky, we look at it on the cloud, dancing up there, hoping Captain Virtue is going to come flying in and
No, fuck
save
that,
people.
man.
Um,
No. No, you can't mix your fucking like perception of reality bullshit with actual reality. If you want to have a conversation philosophically about that, fine. But if you're gonna put it into reality, get fucked. No, you
well,
can't lower the standards. You can't
no,
fuck with things like that. No,
but I will say
people are
this,
not gonna die for your little fucking feels. All right, I'm
right?
sorry.
But
Get fucked.
I will say this, and I'll to anybody, and I'll point this out to Seawall. We have passed the day and age where women will ever accept the true instinctive human natures of the two sexes, what our inherent roles are, and what
Yeah.
our normal proclivities are as a species. It is inherent in every species how the males and females interact and what they do, and humans are no different. And just like Seawall said, men are hardwired to protect women. We are. It's instinctive by nature to a
Yeah.
certain extent. We are protectors. They
Hmm.
are the hunter, the gatherer, the
Hmm.
caregiver. We are the hunter, the protector. These are inherent special things. And we have
Yes.
passed the day and age where women will accept that and function in a society based off those parameters. They look
Hmm.
back at a time like the early 1900s and they see that as oppression. Even after they got the vote and they were a part
Hmm.
of the discussion, they still saw that patriarchal system as oppression and holding them down from whatever greatness they wanted to achieve. But I argue that that is not true when we look at someone like Amelia Earhart. She did.
Hmm.
She broke a glass ceiling all on her own. We've had women throughout history that have stepped up above the idea of the patriarchal society and made a name for themselves. So, opportunities are there, and that's what we want: equality of opportunity, right, John? Not equality of outcome.
Right.
But we can never put that genie back in the bottle. We never can. Women will not accept that as a fact and a rule of thumb that they are the sex of our species that is less inclined to many of the things that they want to undertake in the male quote unquote world. And the military is one example of that.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think that, yeah, the military is not a place to start an experiment like that. Let's see how it works out the rest of society, and then
Well,
we'll kind of. But again, just don't fucking lower the standards. If you're going to do that,
no.
don't. lower
And that's
standard.
when
That is the
it's
biggest thing.
all said and done, we that's where I get into this really hardcore anger about the whole toxic masculinity movement
Mm.
in this country, because when
That's just a
it's
way of dismissing
right,
your point. Yeah, just like mansplaining. This
right,
doesn't mean anything.
but I
It's
can
just a way of dismissing you without addressing what you're saying.
right, and you can talk to
Yeah.
me about toxic masculinity all you want, but you're not going to stop me from opening that door for her. You're not going to stop me from stepping in when I see a situation in which she is apparently the underdog because she's a woman
Well,
in
yeah.
a
Well, yeah. Because if you
situation.
don't, then you're sexist. If you don't do that,
You're not going to
so
stop me from
it's fucking
how I
stupid.
talk to women, and it's more about I am a man. This is who I am,
Yeah.
and this is there's a difference between the sexes. There is, and I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've written lots of how-tos and
Hmm.
dating articles, and all of them are constantly going to focus on this idea that male are dominant in a relationship situation when you are looking for someone. Yes, I understand marriages are 50-50, but when you are approaching a woman, we take a stance normally, unless we're mama's boys, if we want to qualify those.
Yeah.
But normally our stance is to take control of the situation and lead the relationship to a satisfactory point of
Hmm.
marriage, procreation, all of those things. We're hardwired for it. That's what we
Yeah.
do, and they are hardwired to submit to that. I know, I get it. You can't just say all women, and I'm
It's a
not saying
negative. It's
every
also a
women,
negative connotation. Submit to that.
but
That's a very negative connotation.
right, but
But that's not what it means. Yeah.
anthropologically speaking, it is what it is. There weren't many women back in the caveman days running out to knock out a saber-toothed fucking tiger. The boys
Right.
handled that. The boys went
Yeah.
out with their clubs and their spears. That's how it
Hmm.
was, and there was a reason for that. That's how the species kept populating, right? Because the women were
Right.
safe and protecting the children.
And they were safe being protected while they were pregnant, especially.
Exactly.
That's the whole reason why men are, like instinctively protective towards women because they're valuable. There's something to protect there, which is the future generation.
Right.
But that's the
It,
problem, apparently. And what Sewell says here, where he says, I open doors for anyone, like you were talking about before.
mhm.
The funny thing is, I do that, but I don't open the door and like let people go in front of me. I'll open the door and hold it open from the inside.
It all depends on the situation and the timing
No,
for
I
me,
do
because
that.
it kind
Well,
of goes.
yeah,
But
yeah.
if it's a woman, she will always go in before I do.
Oh, see, no, fuck that. Yeah, I don't do
See,
that.
that's
Equal rights.
well, but
I
that's
know. I'll open the door and I'll hold it open for whoever's behind me to come in,
right.
and
But
then let it go.
I was raised with an older set of values where it was,
Yeah.
the gentleman, the gentleman, the gentleman, the gentleman, the gentleman. Everything is about being a gentleman, and
Yeah.
it required that women acted like ladies. That was, but we're not in that time anymore. That won't exist again for us. I don't think we'll see it. You won't see it in your lifetime. I'm not sure if anybody will. I don't know that it'll ever go back to that. And the biggest problem is because no one, whether it's women, whether it's minorities, whether it's it's sexuality, religion, no one will ever be equal enough.
Yeah. That
And,
that is a huge problem. Is that it'll never be enough. No
right.
matter how much you give to these people, it'll never be enough. Yeah.
And the social media and this explosion of the vocal minority also shows me that um, one minor incident is becoming the generalization for an entire group now. So
Mm.
when one situation happens, that speaks to all of men if it's a
Yeah.
feminist issue. If it's a racist thing, one minor simple thing, now that speaks to all of the other race.
Yeah.
These generalizations are flying left and right now, as to how overblown these little things that were always going on. A lot of these things were always happening. They just weren't in our
That's why they're a
face.
problem. Yeah, that's why they're a problem. They've always happened.
Right.
As we know,
Yeah.
if something was once racist, it is still racist and always will be racist.
It says, I will not hold open a door for anyone left of a certain
Angry Austrian.
Also, the
I
only
think
two
we know who you're talking about.
Also, the only two matriarchal
You
societies in the world are literally living in grass and mud huts and only have tech because they got it from neighbors.
matriarchal. Who's that? Amazon, assuming.
you
I
know
don't know.
those aren't real. Hey,
Yeah, they are.
if you ever get a
Of course they
chance,
are.
it's pull up the Kentucky Fried Movie sometime. It's an old
Oh
thing from back in the
yeah,
60s or 70s, and on that was a
yeah,
show, Amazon Women on the Moon.
yeah. No,
And
I
they
used
go
to.
up to the
Yeah,
moon, and there's a race
watch the
of
movie.
Amazon women on the moon.
Yeah, I
Um,
love fucking shitty like 50s and 60s like shitty sci-fi movies. Oh,
but
they're
this
so
one,
good.
but now Kentucky Fried
Like,
Movie it was specifically, it was like you were watching that movie, but they would come in with really fucked up their own commercial breaks. So this was an entire movie of you watching a movie with their
mhm.
own creative commercial breaks and this and stuff.
Oh,
Some of
that's
them were
cool.
really racist. It was just like really crazy. It's Kentucky Fried Movie. Pull it up sometime and watch it. It's
I
one of the
will.
great, very great satirical piece for its time.
Yeah, I'll have
Very
to
funny.
because I was a huge fan of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah.
I used to love
Yeah.
that. I used to watch it with my dad on like Saturday morning or something when I was a kid. Like it was really good.
Yeah, I want to say it was like in the 70s that it was made because it was because one of the commercials, I want, if I remember correctly, was about a pimp. Uh, and all of it. Very, very funny for its time. Kentucky Fried Movie. Check it out. Anyway, John, I'm tired of talking about all this crap because it just really gets on my
Yeah.
nerves whenever, I don't, men and women, equality, races, gender, all of this equality bullshit. Again, it can all be solved very simply. It can be solved very, very simply. And
Yeah, just
it's
put Seawall in
just
charge.
stop making exceptions for anyone.
Right.
Tell everyone they're the same as long as they're a citizen and a human, and move on. Everything is open to litigation. Sue somebody if you think you're being done wrong.
Hmm.
Move on. Shut the fuck up about your inequality in a country that pukes equality for breakfast. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, folks, if you like what you're hearing, hit the like button. If you don't like what you're hearing, please hit the like button. And make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. It's nothing wrong with having something you hate popping up in front of your face just to get you twerked off during the middle of the day. Anyway, John, we can be reached.
Yes, we can. In fact, one of the ways you can reach us is on Twitter at the Gen Gap P. You can also reach us on our Discord server. It's probably the best way to reach us. In fact, link is down below, along with our Twitter, and the most awesome Freedom Scoop, which is a website of sorts that we are also on. The media site. You can go there and check it out. Some articles and other videos from other creators and such. And yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Uh,
Working on getting D Live going, but we haven't done that
yeah,
full
some
right yet.
technical difficulties. I know. It's all
So
my fault.
we're gonna work on that. And when I say we, I mean Robert's gonna work on that.
Right.
And then yeah, so we'll be there shortly.
Hey,
So definitely make sure you check out our Discord server. It's pretty spicy and fun in there if you're not there already.
oh yeah, it gets fun. And thanks for staying in the chat and having fun with us tonight. Those of you who did stay,
Yes.
those of you who just showed up to make your presence known and left.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks for stopping by, but next time pull up a
Yeah.
seat and have a conversation. Hey, John, I'm going to tease it out there. We might be considering adding a new third episode during the week to the show. I've heard rumors.
Might be.
If we
We're
get
trying to
enough
work it out, yeah.
we're going to reach out for some popular opinion, see what the viewing public thinks. Thinking about doing something a little different one more night of the week and get a little more viewership. If you like the idea, let us know. If you don't like the idea,
Then
let us know that you do like it, and we'll live with the lie. So anyway, John, we're going to get the hell out of here. We'll be back again on Monday night if you don't mind shooting the shit with me for a little bit. And
think I can do that.
that'll be at 9 Eastern, and then we'll be back again next Friday. Maybe we'll have somebody lined up. Maybe we won't.
Maybe we will.
We need to have more lineups. I like lineups.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to get the hell out of here. John, thanks for talking with me tonight. We'll
Always.
see everybody soon, folks. Have yourself a good night. Stay safe, and peace.
Yep. See you guys. Stay black.